Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Cork and Board, pairing good food with good wine, and a special welcome to our American viewers. That is right, this is our 4th of July special. We are celebrating with you, America, and to celebrate, we're having tea. Nah, I'm kidding. We're going to be having wine as always, and in particular, we are having a bottle of California red wine. This is a 2017 Cabernet Sauvignon, a grape that California is very well known for producing a very flavorful variant on, and I'm looking forward to it. It's a little bit young out of 2017, but it should still make for good drinking. I normally leave a Cabernet Sauvignon to about 5 or 6 years before I consider drinking it. Now, what is the 4th of July without a grill? So, we are going to be making for ourselves red meat, white buns, and a blue cheese sauce for all in a burger together. Now let's get down to business because everything is going to be made from scratch on this episode. We're going to get started by making the burger buns first because they're what's going to take the longest. Now, much like when we made ciabatta bread a couple weeks ago to start off the summer, burger buns are all about doing a little bit and then having a somewhat lengthy pause in between each step, allowing for things to homogenize, rise, etc. So, without further ado, let's dive on into that. So the bun mixture starts with almost like a mini starter dough using half a cup of water, a teaspoon and a half of yeast, followed up by a quarter cup of flour and a tablespoon of brown sugar. Whisk all of these together until they're homogeneous and then let sit for 10 to 15 minutes. In the meantime, we're going to need half an egg, but eggs don't come in halves, so we're going to whisk this and divide into 2 halves. One half to go into the dough, and the other half to be used later for our egg wash. With the 10 to 15 minutes now up and waiting, the dough should be ready, and it's time to bring out the stand mixer. Add into your mix a cup and a half of flour, as well as the half of an egg, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Put it all into the mixer and get it rolling. Be sure to use a fork to make sure everything is still moving together until you have a homogeneous dough. At this point, you're just going to want to make sure everything is nice and solid together before adding in just a dabble of olive oil to the bowl, which you will then coat the dough with so that it can retain some moisture before covering and letting sit for 2 hours. Now that bread dough needs 2 hours to rise before we move on with it, so this is a perfect window of opportunity to start working on the burgers. Now we are doing a sweet ginger burger for today's episode. It's got a wonderful mild flavor that's not overpowering on the ginger side and really helps the natural beef flavor to shine through. So without further ado, let's get into that and get mixing. We want to make all of our flavoring ingredients first. So we're going to get started with half of an onion finely chopped. This is going to form a good base and add a little bit of mass. Transfer all of that to a steel bowl and then add into that 1 egg, as well as a considerable amount of brown sugar, ginger powder, about twice as much garlic powder, salt, fresh ground black pepper, and the last thing that we're going to add once we're done grinding all the pepper is 2 little shakes of cayenne pepper. And what this is going to do, it's not going to make it any spicier, but it's actually going to reduce a lot of the flavor interference and bring all the other flavors out. Mix this together, but it's a little dry at this point, so we want to add in a dash of balsamic vinegar. This is just going to add a little bit of moisture and let all the other flavors shine through, much like the cayenne pepper. With that mix, we want to open up our breadcrumbs before we add in our ground beef, because we're now going to get our hands really, really dirty and mix our beef with our flavoring ingredients. Go until it's all well mixed together, but it's still going to be a little bit wet too, and will fall apart as a hamburger. So add in a little bit of breadcrumbs, fold it in, and then check the consistency again. You're going to be looking for something that is going to almost stick to your hand, but come away fairly easily and hold itself together nicely. So the burger mixture is ready ahead of schedule. We're actually moving along quite nicely. The bread is still the latent factor in all of this and needs time to continue to rise. So we are going to be taking our burger patty mixture and we're going to be putting it into the fridge where it can sit and stew with itself and let those flavors mix just a little bit more before we divide it into patties. So let's get that moving and then continue on to making our blue cheese sauce. Now, the blue cheese sauce is going to be based off of the concept of cheese fondue. So there's going to be some cream and a little bit of white wine involved in the mixture. Now, normally some people would say it's a faux pas to use white wine for a red wine dish. But in this particular case, we're using white wine with the creamier elements, and that is going to give a much better flavor, whereas red wine would provide a very conflicting flavor and it's not going to complement. And what we're going to get out of that on the other end is a sauce that has just a little bit of wine flavor in it and is going to complement the wine flavor in our California Cabernet Sauvignon quite nicely in and of itself, and just help everything meld together a little bit. So without further ado, let's get this back into the fridge and move on to the next step. We need to start our mixture by burning off the alcohol content, because if there's too much of that present when we add in the cheese or the cream, it will curdle. So we're going to get that going on medium heat along with our lemon juice and a little bit of garlic powder to get things rolling. Now we start with actually our cheese, and we want to put in just a little bit at a time and whisk that around so that it melts very slowly on low heat. Now keep everything in mind that this is going to take some time and requires your full devotion, and be sure to keep it on low heat. Add in more cheese as you feel is necessary, but make sure that it should be constantly, slowly melting. After a while, we're about halfway through, and this is a good time to add in our dash of cream, which will thin the mixture and reduce a little bit of the intensity of that blue cheese flavor. But we still have a little bit of blue cheese to add, so once we're satisfied with the mixture and that nothing's curdled, we are going to add in just a little bit more blue cheese and melt all of that together before transferring it to a ramekin off the heat and keeping it in the fridge until it's time to get ready. Our dough is now finally done after 2 hours, so we're going to empty it out of the bowl and then quickly divide it into 4 pieces, which is all the number of buns that this recipe will make. Get a baking sheet and line it with parchment paper before taking each individual quarter and fashioning it into a round ball. Now once you've got these into balls, you're going to want to flatten them out a little bit and then place them there before covering and letting them sit to rise into a more bun-like shape. In the meantime, let's flatten our patties. You're going to want to start by basically turning your entire mixture into 6 large meatballs. Set them onto your plate, but then once you've got them all done, transfer them back to the bowl so that there's only one left on your plate. Now here you're going to need some very technical skills. Yeah, that's all you really have to do. Smush it with your palm and round it out a little bit before folding over the parchment paper and putting a second one on top. You may need multiple pieces of parchment paper for this, but you're just going to do this for all of your burgers before setting them aside and letting them slowly rise to room temperature. What that's going to do is give you a more succinct burn later. Last thing we want to do before going into this is prep our egg wash just by adding a little milk before brushing it on to our now slightly risen buns. And then finally adding in some sesame seeds and a little bit of salt before it goes into the oven at 375 Fahrenheit for 15 to 17 minutes. With those done, it's now time for the grill. On low heat on one side, place your sauce mixture before putting the burgers down on high heat on the other side. So, the burgers are on the grill. It's going to cook very quickly. We're going to need maybe 5 to 7 minutes total to be done, which means this is the perfect opportunity to get that first impression of the Cabernet Sauvignon. Let's open it up. And here we go, California Red. I gotta say, it's probably been years since I last actually had a California Red. I'm very much looking forward to it. Right out of the bottle, still young, but there's that kick of flavor. It's a little subdued because the wine is, yes, still young. It's only 3 years old. This would be much, much more forward in the flavor profile if this was a 5 or 6 or even a 7-year-old Cabernet Sauvignon. But still, very deep, very rich flavor. I'm really enjoying it. But we still have some burgers to take care of. Let's finish those off. With our burgers now ready for flipping, they've only got about 2 to 3 more minutes left on the grill, and they're going to have good char marks. Now, it can be a challenge to remove them, but persistence will pay off here, and that just means you're ready to plate your burger with some onions, tomato, greens, your sauce, and it is done. All right, the burger is made. Happy 4th of July, America. Let's have our taste. This is a nice size. It fits in the hand really, really well. Now that is a good burger. There's a huge amount of sweet and savoriness coming from the burger itself. There's the gingering, the brown sugar, it's all coming through very, very nicely. I'm getting that blue cheese. I maybe didn't put as much of it as I should have on here, but I'm still getting that creaminess with mixed with a little bit of sharpness coming through as I'm biting into it. And the bun is just so savory when it's this fresh out of the oven. Now, let's see how our wine tastes after this tasting. It's almost like what's in the burger is so strong that it's forcing all of the elements in this wine that are strong right now in its young state down, and I'm just getting a lot of that youth present in the wine. It feels silky smooth, it feels like it hasn't aged properly, but it does mean that there's a lot of promise in this wine, and means that there's something that it probably will do well with in a year or 2 years. Right now though, it's probably still a little young, but at the same time, it means that I can enjoy this burger full on foremost. A little disappointed I'm not going to get as much of the wine flavor profile as I would have liked, but we can always try again and see what a second bite gives me. Now, it's important to note that as the wine heats up, it's been in the fridge and the cellar for the last little bit since I purchased it. It's been quite cool most of this time, and as it warms up, the flavor profile is going to change. So even just bite to bite, we could see a difference. A little bit better. There's a little bit more warmth into this one than there was even just 2 minutes ago. But I'm still getting a lot of that youth in there. The fruitiness is sort of masked over. The tannins are way too smooth for something that's been aged properly. And honestly, I think it's just a case of too young of a wine. Little bit disappointing, but it's still good to drink now, but it will be even better in 2 to 3 years' time. So that's it for this episode, everyone. Happy 4th of July, America. We will see you all on the next one. Do not forget to like, comment, and pour over that subscribe button to see more content and our weekly updates. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.